most companies treat the market like it's the weather, that you can't do anything about it, that it just exists, and you hope you can find a way to play in that market. But that's not true, because a market or a category is literally a space in people's minds. And if it's a place in people's brains, then you can create it. The idea of category design is like, how can you create that new space in people's minds, but also influence it in a way so that their expectation of what that category is going to be is what your company is going to produce. And if you can create that expectation, then you have the best chance of winning that space over time.
Hello, everybody. It's Fernando Labastida here at Strike Marketing Summit. Really excited to have everybody here. Before we get started with our very first session, the category design session, wanted to really kind of explain the concept and then kind of give you a little bit of a preview as to what we're going to be having over the next few days. The speakers you're going to hear from are going to be in one of these 5 buckets, okay? The strike marketing model is really a flywheel that starts with category design. That's the foundation, and that's why we're starting off with the category design panel, right? And then the next in the flywheel is, okay, you've designed your category, and then capture in a book, right? Write the guidebook, write the manifesto, write, the Bibles, if you will, of your category. Get the words out there. This is really kind of like the first shot across the bow in terms of your strategy, across the bow in terms of your strategy. And then what we're talking about here in the Strike Marketing Summit is the next part is doing your lightning strike. Lightning strike is a big publicity inducing event that you can do to really kind of get your concept, get your category out there in the public domain. With the strike marketing framework, what we're talking about here are 3-day summits, 5-day summits, 2-day summits. This is a 2-day summit. Is really as a way of kind of like providing that watering hole, if you will, for your super consumers. And we'll learn pretty soon what a super consumer is. It's your target market. It's the ones who will buy everything you produce. They'll promote you, and they're the ones that you will refine your category with, right? Then after that, you continue the conversation about your category, the conversation you started with your book and your summit, through regular content creation, not to talk about your company, but to talk about your category. And then, of course, we're in the age of AI, and what more can you do with AI than to really amplify your thoughts, to sort of 10x, 100x yourself as a category designer, as a company. Okay, so here we are, and I'm going to bring in the category panel in just a minute. But after the panel, we have at 12 o'clock Central Time, 1 Eastern, we have Mike Damphousse and Kevin Maney, who are about to release a new book called The Category Creation. Oh my God, I forgot about it. The nervousness of the moment. I forgot exactly what it's called, but they'll tell us, right? But they're writing a groundbreaking book with new research, new information about category design, never before seen by anybody. Then at 1 o'clock, we are having Chris Stanley, another one of the category design panelists. He's going to talk about writing your book that generates, that builds your business, right? So how to build a book system using mini books to build your business. And then at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, we have Russ Henneberry, founder of The Click, who's really going to talk about AI, building your growth OS using ChatGPT in a special way. Then at 3 p.m. Central, 4 Eastern, we have Brian Funk. Brian he also is a category designer, actually, and he has helped scale 2 SaaS companies in the SaaS for good space, right? SaaS for nonprofits, by orders of magnitude using summits. So I think it's really going to be interesting to see Brian talk about that. Then at 4 o'clock Central, 5 Eastern, we have Kevin McGrew, who is a marketing agency owner, and how he went from CEO to author, and the whole process of becoming an author. So the great thing is we're going to have 2 book writing panels. And then finally at 5 p.m. Central, 6 Eastern, we have Daryl Westerveld, who I think is kind of like the god of summits. You know, he launched a summit of 180,000 registered attendees. And so he's going to talk about that. And then tomorrow starts a news. So I just wanted to give one more thing that I wanted to talk about is one of the sponsors, Motion to Scale. So Motion to Scale, I think, is really interesting. She's actually Lydia Fiacchiani. I forget how to pronounce her last name. Sorry, Lydia. But she's actually a category designer herself, and she's also in the legal tech revenue science space, right? And so we're going to hear about naming and claiming problems and naming and claiming categories. And what she has done with Motion to Scale is she has actually identified and named a problem. It's called a scaling stall, right? So when you're trying to scale your tech startup, and especially legal tech, she specializes in legal tech services, how legal tech companies, when they're trying to scale their companies to get to that point where they can actually go public or get acquired, et cetera, they reach this scaling stall, right? And so she's going to talk about, she has a special offer, which I'll announce a little bit later on in the summit, to basically help legal tech companies discover their go-to-market maturity and path to sustained growth. And I'll be sharing that with you momentarily. But without further ado, let me bring in the category designers right here. We are going to announce, first of all, Kevin Maney. Kevin Maney is one of the original category designers. He was a co-author of the book Play Bigger, which launched the whole category creation, category design movements back in 2016. We have Chris Stanley. He's the mini book guy. He is he designed, invented a whole new category about building your business on the back of a series of mini books, a mini book system, if you will. And then Mike Damphousse. Mike is another category designer. Mike and Kevin are partners at Category Design Advisors. Okay. Let me just throw this question out to the panel right now. Let's just start with Kevin. 1 or 2 minutes, lightning round. What is category design, and specifically, what is category design to you? I know everybody's going to have a different what it means for them, or maybe a slightly different definition. But why don't we go with you, Kevin?
Oh, thanks, Fernando, and hi everybody. It's great to be here. Well, as we said in the book, Play Bigger, right? That most companies treat the market like it's the weather, that you can't do anything about it, that it just exists, and you hope you can find a way to play in that market. But that's not true, because a market or a category is literally a space of people's minds. That's all it is, right? And so 20 years ago, the space in your mind of electric car was not a category you'd even consider if you were going to think about buying a car. And Tesla managed to open that category up in our minds so that now BMW and Ford and everybody else can sell into that category. So it literally is a place in your brain that hosts the idea that this thing exists, or this is an option. And if it's a place in people's brains, then you can create it, you can manipulate it, you can design it. So the idea of category design is like, how can you create that new space in people's minds, but also influence it in a way so that their expectation of what that category is going to be is what your company is going to produce. And if you can create that expectation, then you have the best chance of winning that space over time, because now you're setting up the rules for what people expect from that category. And so to me, literally, category design is a way to influence that new space in people's brains and design it so it is in the best interest of your company and your product.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. I think Pablo has the wrong link for, is he backstage?
Yeah, he says
I think he's backstage. He's talking sometimes.
Gosh, here he is. Pablo, I am so
There he is. Yes.
What problem do I need to solve to get on stage here?
Okay, Pablo Gonzalez. Let me just introduce him briefly. And thank you so much, Kevin. Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries.
Pablo Gonzalez is the chief evangelist at Vendaroo, and he also has a firm called Be the Stage, and he will explain that in a minute. So, yeah, really, so Kevin, a space. Just to summarize, a space in your market's minds, then, right?
Right. I mean, a new category is a new space in people's brains that you have an opportunity to influence and design in your favor.
Okay, perfect. All right, why don't we go the way I'm seeing it? We're going to go counterclockwise. Chris, why don't you give your definition or what it means for you?
Well, for me, in 2016, I was a regional manager, thinking about starting an online company because, that's what everybody wanted to do at that point. And I read this little book called Play Bigger, Kevin. And so in the fall, I was like, of 2016, I said, I want to start a new company, but I don't want to just do what everybody else is doing. And I really didn't know what I was doing, but I literally took Play Bigger as a literal playbook. Like, this is what I do, start to finish. And to me, what it became, category design as a solopreneur, because I was just one guy, was like just what Kevin said. How do I create something that cannot be compared in cost to everything else? And so to me, it's just choosing intentionally where you're stepping into. For solopreneurs, sometimes you are stepping into an existing market, but it's creating that space in people's minds to say, I want to be thought about this way. Even if I'm in an existing market, I'm going to category design my little part of that market. Or if you're Lyft, a whole new market that you can step into. So I think Kevin nailed it on the head. It's the space in people's minds.
Perfect. And I love what you're doing with the whole, the smart publishing and the mini book publishing system. Mike Damphousse, also known as Damp. Why don't you go ahead?
I'll mix it up. I'll tell you what category design isn't. Category design is not marketing, and it's the biggest mistake everybody makes. They read Play Bigger, which, incredible book, introduced category design to the world. And they walk away. If they're a CEO, they give a copy of the book to their CMO and say, read this. And the reality is that category design starts way before marketing. Marketing is the tip of the spear, for sure. And, the marketing team's going to be busy as hell for months and years, and we'll talk about all that. But category design is a strategic way of thinking. It's got to be driven from the top down. In fact, when Kevin and I talk to potential new clients, which we talk to about 4 of them a week. We have open office hours on our website. Very often it's the marketing team that starts the conversation, and we literally just tell them, look, let's have the conversation with your CEO, and when that happens, we can get serious. Because if you don't build the initial DNA of the category strategy, then all the marketing in the world is going to bring you nowhere. It's got to be from the top down.
Okay, it's essentially a business strategy before it's anything.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know that also category design, and we can get into this in a little bit, also is, inventing a new business model. That's not marketing. That's, how you do business, how you monetize, right? So perfect. Thanks for that, Damp. Pablo,
hey,
what's up? Sorry for keeping you off stage so long.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Fernando.
Yeah.
I got a slightly different take also, right? Like I definitely, obviously I learned what category design is based on the words that Kevin wrote. But I'm going to say like what I have used category design for, right? For me, I made a big bet about 10 years ago in my career when I found like the value of community, and I realized I could solve business problems. And I've just kind of bet my whole career on community creation for business development. And I think when you are an innovative person that has like a big aha moment, you're like, yes, I found the hammer and everything is a nail, right? And you can kind of get lost in like the sauce of how great your thing is. When I read Play Bigger, I realized, right, like I've been a student of influence my whole life, and I saw it as like the greatest framework for influence at an industrial scale I have ever read. Meaning, kind of like what Dam said, right? If you're going to organize a company to change, the world or change the way things are, it is a strategy from the top down. And as a marketer, it is the playbook for how you actually go take that message out to the world. Right. So I just see it as like the principles that I follow for taking the world from the way that it was to this like new idea, new way of doing it, whether it's on like a personal level for like your own personal category design, like Chris has done, or what the category design advisors have done as like advising companies that go public and have IPOs, and then Damp gets a tat of like the logo.
Right here. Those were all
I
ours.
didn't want to show that.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Pablo, so and then you're also designing your own category, right?
Man, I worked real hard at trying to like design a category around Be the Sage, the company that I founded from for like community creation for business development, and really I've been able to like apply what we've affectionately called category thinking, of just ways to differentiate myself and approach it that way. With Vendaroo taking a partnership stake and equity stake at Vendaroo, which is an AI company in the property management space, I have really gotten the privilege and like the honor of like truly applying these principles that I've learned from Kevin and Damp and these other guys that led before me inside one of these like rapid scale startups that are at a moment, which I'm sure we'll talk about the category formula and their book, right? Like they are at a moment where like the context is shifting and a new missing is created, and it drives a need for innovation, which is something that I learned from these guys. So I'm getting to do it at this like, really high growth startup phase, is leading that charge. And it's been incredible.
Yeah, perfect. And by the way, the book that Kevin, Maney, and Damp are releasing soon is called The Category Creation Formula. Okay, so there it is, and that's the next. They're the next panel after this. Okay, perfect. So my approach from category design came from I was an early marketer back in the 2007, 2008, 2009 when I really started getting into digital marketing, and I followed HubSpot very closely. So there's some debates as to whether they really did design a category or not, but I really saw them as a company that created the inbound marketing category. Since then, they have gone into CRM, which is dominated by Salesforce.com, and they kind of lost the script there. But they really they invented this whole inbound marketing thing. Dharmesh Shah and Brian Halligan wrote the book Inbound Marketing. They launched a hugely successful blog, the Inbound Marketing blog. They launched the Inbound Conference, which typically gets about 7,500 attendees every year up in the Boston, Massachusetts area. They really, and what they did was they set themselves up as the leading provider in the inbound marketing space, and they brought a whole bunch of new agencies with them, brand new agencies that started as inbound marketing agencies. These didn't exist before, right? So I was fascinated by that, and then also as a creator. I was also following the career of Joe Polizzi, who back in 2007, he started the Content Marketing Institute. And he was the one who single-handedly through the Content Marketing Institute, he coined the phrase, or he popularized the phrase, the term content marketing. And he is now known as the godfather of content marketing, right? So I love it that a venture-backed, IPO'd company like HubSpot could create a category, and then somebody who completely was just an independent creator, Joe Polizzi, designing a category. I'll finish with this. The story that I love about Joe Polizzi is that, just like any other person who wants to go and use SEO to grow their company, they'll look at Google Trends first and see how their search terms are trending. If it's really worth starting to double down on positioning themselves for that keyword. He saw when he looked at Google Trends, he saw that content marketing was barely a blip on the radar. And he said, Yay, fantastic. That gives me an opportunity to build it into something. Normally, people would say, oh man, there's nothing to this content marketing thing. I'm going to go to something else where there's a lot of search traffic and try to compete. And he said, no, I'm going to go and turn and create this content marketing thing, make it popular. And he did it, and he had faith in doing it. And anyway, but that's really more in the marketing space. And I'm really glad that Damp and Kevin are talking about how category design is not marketing. So next question. And also feel free to also ask questions of each other, or people here in the chats ask questions. My next question is, with category design, really, I think the starting point, if you want to create a category, is you identify a niche market, and you identify their a pain that has not been, or a problem that has not been solved before, right? So who wants to pipe up right now and tell us a little bit about identifying that pain? What is your approach to identifying that pain?
I'll chime in, because you brought up HubSpot, and the HubSpot team are friends of ours. In fact, Mark Roberge, who was the head of sales there, head of revenue for years, is one of the endorsements on the back of the new book. And Dan Tyre, who was employee like number 5. Dan's been a friend for years. They brought me in. This is way before Play Bigger even came out. This is when HubSpot was emerging. They brought me in the early days, and helped with how they were presenting the company to the market. And it's a key category design tenet, is identify the problem, right? They didn't just introduce and market inbound marketing. They basically came out with this huge message of outbound marketing sucks. And that was the problem. And they focused on the problem so much that you could not have bumped into HubSpot during their first 10 years of existence and not walked away thinking, oh yeah, all the outbound marketing that everybody does is just wasting our time. It's filling our inboxes. It's, causing our phones to ring. And I want a better solution to that. It was the most obvious problem in the world at the time. And they solved it. Inbound marketing was the solution. And people didn't create this place in their minds for HubSpot. They created a place in their minds for inbound marketing. And that's the whole reason category design works, is you solve a problem that's obvious, and the person who solved that problem gets the luxury of being the logo associated with the solution. And HubSpot didn't even know there was such a thing called category design, but you know what? They did it.
Yeah. And that's fantastic. And I think one of the beautiful things about category design, when you're actually out there marketing or maybe doing content marketing for it, you're there building the category, not your company, but your company as the category designer gets the benefit of building the category. So that's perfect. Anybody else have any thoughts on identifying problems and maybe even validating those problems with actual real people or something?
Well, for me, I know whenever I go to write a book, whenever, I've started a company, and when I'm helping people try to figure out, like, what do I want to do? What do I want to start, especially solopreneurs, they really struggle with, what Dan's talking about, like, what's the problem? And for most people, it comes back to, if you're a solo person, like, what problems have you solved in your own career, in your own life? Like, because if you're going out there trying to solve something that you've never tackled, you're in for, a heck of a time. Like, I had a friend of mine who wanted to solve AI way before AI was a thing. And he's like trying to, figure it out. But I'm like, he's never solved it for himself. So every product he released, didn't really work because he never actually solved that problem. But if you can come at it from an angle of, like, this is how I solved this problem for this specific person or for yourself, then all of a sudden that proof, you can start to build out a product around that, systematize it, or, build a SaaS product around it. But a lot of times it just starts for me with, what is it I've actually solved? How can we do that better at scale?
Yeah. Perfect. I love that.
To sort of double down a bit on Chris was talking about. So we have a concept in the new book that we talk about is we go back and we say, like, okay, so everybody in technology especially talks about product market fit. Product market fit was a concept that was introduced by Mark Andreessen in a blog post in 2006, I think. And we actually believe that that's backwards. That the real way to think about it is, and I know this sounds like it's semantics, but it's market product fit. And to us, what that means is, so like most companies first think about, I'm going to build this product and I got this really cool product and now I got to find a market that it fits into, which is backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So our philosophy is what the first conversation you should have when you're starting a company and before you even start a company is, where's the market? What is the market that that needs something? What's missing out there? And if you can identify the market first, then you know what product to build to fit into that market. And that is the, if you're finding a new problem and building a new product to fit into that new problem, to solve that new problem, you're creating a new category. So that's the way we think about it is, I mean, we would encourage anybody to think about the idea. It's not product market fit, it's market product fit.
Yeah. I think what's very clear about what all three of these guys just said is the idea that deep knowledge about what people are going through is the only way that you identify a problem, right? I think, Fernando, the question you asked was like, how do you how do you identify the problem, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think when I love Kevin's idea of like, find the market, right? Like the market problem fit, right? Like market product fit. Inherently, you have to understand the market. Like, I don't know how you identify a problem without having lived in the market, right? Like whether it's HubSpot being marketers themselves and understanding the pains of outbound and how much that sucks and being able to write about it, or the things that Chris has done from a personal level, like understanding the problems he solved, like that only happens living in market, right? So like for me, I look for ways where I can find scale, I guess is one way to put it, but how I can kill multiple birds with one stone, which is a term my wife hates because she's a birder, and I'm trying to figure out a different way to say that. But like, how do you get utility out of being in market, right? Like, and I find that my best way to do that is through content co-creation, right? So it's like whether it's like interviewing founders and the founding team around the market and the problem that they were trying to solve originally, interviewing their customers around kind of like what they came there for, or being out at trade shows doing like some kind of like content engagement in order to get that. It allows me to get in these conversations with the market to like surface what this like problem could be and how they're saying it, and then be able to review it later, but also at the same time start having the foundational pieces of like the content I need to create to then not just surface the problem, but then go like evangelize that problem based on like the words that people have said in their own words and those kinds of things, right? So like, I think it's time in market, and I think it's finding a way to like have very efficient time in market while you're also doing all the other things that you need to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and to add to what everybody's been talking about, I like, so one of the ways I go about just identifying problems in general and identifying ways to sort of like, I think the category pirates at one point talked about damn the demand, right? So if before your category is actually out there in the zeitgeist, you have to kind of tap into current demand and then kind of like, okay, this is what you were actually wanting, but this is what you really want, right? And so, but first of all is really kind of understanding what the language that your current target market uses. And I like doing qualitative interviews, right? So talking to current clients of my clients, just doing, sitting down and talking to 10, 5, 6, 7, 10 clients and understanding what their pains are and what are the problems they've been to, and kind of hearing the story, the context, and hearing the language they use, so that I can then use that to sort of to dig into their current demand, so that we can then divert it to the new concept, right? And so, and then Pablo, I'm just going to repeat something that you and I talked about before, which is really going out there and and talking to people at events, at trade shows. I know with the podcast activation you do at trade shows, it's a great way for you to really kind of get into the minds, get into the lives of your target market, which is talking to them through a podcast and getting them comfortable so that they can share the stuff that they don't normally share, right? So that's what I think. I think from the salesperson and marketer all the way up to the CEO. The CEO needs to get on sales calls. He needs to talk to clients. He needs to go to trade shows. He needs to be in touch with the market. Really, he needs to kind of understand, what is really going on. How are people actually really using their products? What are they saying? That what are they complaining about? What do they like? What do they wish they had? And et cetera. So, all right, perfect. If anybody has anything else to add, please do that. But I had another question, which is, what is the best way to get so with category design? A big part of that is languaging, right? So naming and claiming the problem, and then also naming and claiming your solution, which is your category, and then the various, the vocabulary that goes along with your solution, right? So, what is y'all's experience with best practices for coining terms that describe problems, and why even try and name problems first of all before even naming your category?
I'd love to tee it up for the category design advisors to talk about the category formula right now, because I think that's been like the biggest learning I've had in my whole journey. I don't know if that's how you guys see it as languaging or not.
Well, we can. I mean, I'll go into it briefly here, and then we'll go into more depth in this next session too. But so after working with 50 ad companies and God knows how many sessions with incubators and accelerators and VCs, and started to dawn on us that there was this formula that was a good way to think about how to frame a category and see a new category. And we simplified it down to this very simple equation that is context plus missing plus innovation equals a new market category.
Context plus missing plus innovation?
Yeah. Context plus missing plus innovation. And so if you put that up on the wall, and bring your leadership team into the room and say, we're going to tackle these one piece at a time. And that means that, you spend an hour talking about so context is a word that kind of encapsulates the whole idea of everything that's going on around your target audience. What are the big changes that's going on in technology and for that matter, geopolitics or the, zeitgeist. And if you really, and again, going to Pablo and Chris's point about like really understanding the actual, being a part of the market that you're targeting, you can have that deep conversation about what's happening to these people in this market. And if you can really have that conversation, really understand that, then what starts to kind of like form out of that is this image of, well, what's missing? What is the problem that is either being created by this new context? Because sometimes that happens, right? The new things that, COVID disrupts supply chains. So, AI changes a lot about the way people do business. Those new problems get created. Or does the new context, like new technologies, allow for a solution to a problem that's never been able to be solved in any other way? So you start to see that missing thing that starts to form out of that conversation about the context. And if you can see that missing, then it's very easy to have a conversation about what is the innovation, what is the thing we create to solve for that missing in this new context. If you put all those pieces, if you have that whole conversation, you now have the story of your category, because you can tee up and again, you do want to find somebody who's a good writer, good with words, to say this very clearly. But that's how you can tee up this whole idea of what you're creating by describing this context, describing that there's this new problem or old problem in this context, and that there's this new way of solving it. And this is the new category. I mean, it kind of lays it all out for you if you have the conversation that way. And we landed, Mike, was it 5 years ago? Maybe we landed on this. Yeah. And we've used it in every category design client work that we've done, and it is the single best driver of that conversation of everything that we bring to the table.
I just want to vouch for that. Like Damp taught me this like 2 years ago, shared it with me, and then we made a bunch of content together around it. And that has been the biggest unlock for me of really fitting in this idea of going from is category a name of something that I created to like, what is this narrative that I'm telling? And the way that I've been able to just kind of like iterate through that, I've started to kind of like see it as, taking that category formula, context, missing, innovation, extrapolating that into like the point of view narrative. That was also a framework that Damp and Kevin taught me as far as kind of like the world and how it is, and, like the changes that are happening and how that affects it. And like, this new way of doing it and this future state kind of thing. And I see it as kind of like, that's the movie, right? And the languaging becomes the one-liners from the movie that people repeat. Mm-hmm. And I try to really like lay it out based on their formula and create a taxonomy of kind of like the characters and the one-liners in the movie, and then just repeat those things out into the market until I see what people start repeating the same way that, I say my favorite line from Dumb and Dumber over and over again kind of thing. Right. So instead of, I think people think a lot about the title of the movie as the category, but really the thing that you get traction from is the one-liners that people say from the movie. And that's the languaging that starts to pop out when you put it into the formula that these guys have created.
That's a great point, Pablo.
Yeah. And I think that if you hear somebody talking about those one-liners, and a lot of those one-liners are like what you said, Kevin, which is, cold calling or no, outbound marketing sucks, right? then when people start using those outbound marketing suck things or other kinds of what a friend of mine, Jeffrey Eisenberg, he's actually Brian Eisenberg is going to be a speaker tomorrow. He calls them brandable chunks, right? Is that you get associated with that as well, right? So if you ask Google or if you ask ChatGPT about that, then you're probably the one that's going to most probably be come up when you ask about, how can I solve this this problem? How can I solve this this outbound market this outbound marketing problem because it sucks or something like that. I don't know. That wasn't entirely articulate. So I don't know if anybody has any more words to say about that, because I had another question. Or if anybody
as far as the languaging and how you figure it out, like to me, and it's like I think it was Damp who threw it out there, and I'm sorry, Pablo, but it's like you're going out there and using your taxonomy until it comes back to you, right? Until you start hearing that echo, it's like you better just keep searching because you're not resonating. That resonance when someone uses it back at you. When you hear somebody use your term of how you describe a problem or use your term of how you describe a category, like that is your point where you're like, stop what I'm doing. That just came back to me and it wasn't on my post, but I just heard it somewhere else. When you hear it in the wild and it was your original term, or even it wasn't your term, but it brings clarity to you about what you've been talking about, grab that taxonomy, save it, go use it again, see if it comes back to you again. So a lot of times it doesn't come from even the category designer. You hear it in the wild, echoed off the walls, you kind of grab it and piece it together with something else.
And look, I mean, the category of category design didn't exist before. we wrote Play Bigger, and all these phrases that are in there, and like we're here at the Strike Marketing Summit, right? Lightning strikes wasn't the title of the book. It wasn't like it was one of those things that was in the book. It's become part of the vocabulary now, and marketing circles, people call themselves category designers. There's all of these phrases from deep in the book that have now become part of the conversation. And just, to Chris's and Pablo's point, I mean, that's the juicy parts. I mean, the title and, some of the label you put on the category is only minimally part of it. It's the whole package and everything that you can spin out of it that really makes a difference.
Yeah. So you what you said kind of triggered my next question, which is, the first book about category design was Play Bigger. That was in 2016. It was almost 10 years ago, right? And it's only really now where I'm starting to see like so many people talk about it, and it's really starting to get out there kind of exponentially, which leads me to the question, what's the best way to get the word out there about this category, right? And in a way that's sustainable, in a way that's that doesn't seem like as though you're just trying to take ownership of it, and doesn't allow for this kind of organic, thing that people, because like inbound marketing, even though it was associated with HubSpot, when HubSpot was writing about inbound marketing in their blog and they talked about it in their conference, et cetera, nobody saw this as sort of like a cynical ploy to market their company, even though it was a great way to market their company. They saw it as sort of yes, inbound marketing, that's logical. This is exactly what we need right now. It's kind of like, so how do you get the word out there in a way that makes it seem organic, but also benefits your company and does it pretty quickly, or not?
Well, the key to mobilizing a category is to have a category point of view that is defined and articulated in such a way that people can understand what problem they have, what are the ramifications of not solving the problem, and what's the solution, which is the category. And that category point of view, which, Play Bigger talks about it, our new book talks about it. It's a narrative story that you put together, and it's the architecture of the whole category. It's the blueprint. And when you're trying to communicate to the world what your category is, doesn't matter what it is. It could be 3-sentence sound bites that a CEO uses. It could be a whole website. It could be a video. Whatever it is, it's got to be the POV morphed into whatever you're using, right? That story, it's got to be locked down by the company. The executive team needs to all buy into it. The whole company needs to buy into it. And then everything you do to communicate has to emerge from that point of view. And we've seen it over and over again. One of the biggest failures of category designers, and category designers do fail. One of the biggest failures is they lock down a POV and then they hire a new head of marketing. And that new head of marketing wants to put their friggin' brand on, personal brand on the company, and they walk away from the POV. And they start talking like traditional marketers do, which is all marketing puke, right? It's, hey, we're bigger, better, brighter, faster. And they use superlatives like they're vomiting words out of their mouth. But the point of view is just a clear way to talk about the problem and the solution. And so anything you do to communicate the category is stemming from the point of view, and you're not talking about your company or your brand, that's an afterthought, right? Category marketing is not about your brand. Category marketing, if done properly, is about the category, it's about the problem. And then in the end, the brand is associated with that. So very, very important.
Yeah. We have a question.
Fernando, can I just say something real quick to what Dam said right now? Like I heard a while ago, I think it was like Dean Graziosi said this on a stage at Funnel Hacking Live in 2019. I just really love this line. Don't think he's that cool. He said, you never start a conversation with anybody. You can simply hope to enter a conversation already happening inside someone's mind. And that, and the way that we do that, that unlock of like getting into a conversation in someone's mind is story. It's the oldest human technology. And the POV narrative that these guys are talking about is the category designer's master key to like enter a conversation. Like if someone's like walking along a way, wrap their arms around it and then like redirect the conversation to, that point in the point of view. Right. And it's done through walking in through the context of their life, contextualizing this to this new missing that they're talking about, the category formula. And then you get the chance to offer in like a new innovation, which is why that category formula is so genius.
Yeah. And it's actually funny that you talked about the biggest mistake that companies do when creating a category, Dan. because Kevin McGrew here, he has a question about exactly that, right? So in one sentence, what part of the formula do most startups get wrong? Is it misreading the context, failing to articulate the missing or over engineering the innovation? Damp, you said it was like a new CMO coming in and just forgetting about the category and putting the brand first, or the personal brand of the founder, et cetera. I don't know if anybody else has any good
Can I
answers.
take a guess before we get the actual stats from Kevin Maney? Can I take a guess? It's what they probably started with, is my guess, at least what I've seen in my own business, is when I have a good idea, that's when it originates from a good idea and not from the problem. My guess is that's probably where the mistake in the formula comes, is they're going backwards about it. But I'm sure Kevin Maney's got it more specific.
That's Chris. That's exactly what I would have said. No, seriously. I mean, the companies that get it wrong are the ones that do exactly what you said. We got this innovation. Let's figure out the missing in some context that makes it work.
Yeah.
Got to do it the other way around. And I think that a lot of companies don't see the context conversation as important. And yet we believe that that's like absolutely important. And I'll add something else about this whole idea of a POV and what sticks and things like that, is that if the POV that you're putting out there, if you think about it as, we're giving something to the world, we're not trying to sell anybody on anything. We're not trying to do ourselves a favor. We're actually trying to do the market a favor by pointing out that this thing doesn't work, or this problem exists and this thing sucks, and that there actually is a solution to it that should exist whether our company does it or not. If you think about the POV you're putting out there in that way, then people will feel like that you're giving them something valuable, and will latch onto it and then lean in and want to go like, okay, well, if you know all of that, do you know how to help me solve this problem? Rather than the other way around, which is what most sales calls do, right? Is it turn you off and you immediately kind of click off and don't care. And so, that to me is a really important part of a way of thinking about how you frame this thing.
The one thing that's really interesting is we talk to so many founders, right? That most of the folks we talk to are seed level, A round, et cetera. We've worked with companies as big as LinkedIn, but the majority of people that start thinking about category design are early. And the reality is, most companies have the DNA of the category in their minds, right? And it's all scattered. It's like they stumbled on the innovation. They think they understand the problem, et cetera. But the process of category design, to use a very simple metaphor, is like processing the DNA, sequencing the DNA. You've got it already. And it's almost like group therapy, sitting in a room and trying to figure it out. And once you've figured it out and mapped out your DNA, holy shit, the category is there. And if you don't build it, somebody else is going to. And that's complete reality nowadays, right? Things are moving so fast that if you think you have a category, you better freaking act on it. Because somebody with a ChatGPT prompt is going to beat you to the punch. So move fast.
Well, we have 12 minutes before the next session, before you guys' session, and Kevin. I wanted to have one last question that I wanted everybody to
Fernando, did you see that there's like a Q&A tab here in the main thing, that there's like 3 questions in a Q&A?
Oh, shoot. Yeah, let's go ahead and ask that. Okay, how would category design work for a real estate agent? From Gus. Oh, my goodness. And then Abel and then Amber. Why don't we do those questions quickly? Gus, how would category design work for a real estate agent? So I think that's really interesting, because I gave a talk to on a live with my friend Gustavo Munoz Castro. He provides services, cold calling, outbound services for, on an outsourced basis. And so that's one of the things, real estate agents are everywhere. My sister's one. You guys probably have a brother, cousin, friend, et cetera, who's a realtor. How would you do something in that space?
Chris, I feel like you're the personal category design guy with a book. Would you think like a book is a thing for a real estate agent?
Everything, a book is a hammer, so it just works for everything in my mind. But if I'm trying to create a category in any space, well, there's 3 questions. I start, and Kevin said it a little bit different way, but I'm just dumb and I have to make it super dumbed down. Is you start with the person. So in this case, the real estate person. You start with the problem. What problem is that real estate person experiencing? And then what's your POV, is hammered on. What's your point of view of the solution that will make you stand out in any market? It doesn't have to be real estate, but that's where I go. Those 3 things. If I can't answer those 3 things with conviction, I don't move on. Like that. That's my little formula there, Kevin.
Yeah, and then as a real estate agent, just don't shut up about the POV instead of only talking about yourself and your properties and whatever, right? It's just think about what Damp said. I think it was Damp that just said it, right? What is the thing out there that people aren't saying that someone's going to say and they're going to take it from you? Talk about that. I think real estate agents, like to talk about themselves a lot. That's kind of starting with the innovation, right?
So yeah, choose a person though, right? That's what you're saying. Is if you're going to talk to a specific person, I've had realtor friends who only serviced GIs moving to Fort Bragg area. So they knew that market, right? The market need was apparent. So zoom in on whoever it is you're serving, and then figure out that problem in POV.
To Chris's point that you have a hammer and everything looks like a nail. So I'm going to use our category formula on this one too. But seriously, it does seem to work for any situation. So if you're a real estate agent, and you really do want to kind of stand out, be different from every other real estate agent, the first thing you should be thinking through is, how is the context changing around real estate right now? Is there if there's a housing shortage, or has COVID changed the way that certain neighborhoods are being, some are dying because people aren't going back to the office? Really understand the context of the market that you serve, and look in that context for some problem that's not being solved or not being addressed in a way that is really satisfying the market. And if you can see that, then you can start to work backwards towards, okay, well, what can I, innovative way can I market a real estate firm that's specific to a new kind of problem that I've identified. I mean, that's pretty much the only way in a well-known, crowded field like real estate that you could find a place to be different.
Yeah. Perfect. And Pablo's point about plenty of context changes. I mean, a huge context change right now is Gen Z not being able to afford houses.
Yeah.
So how can there be a new real estate category created helping Gen Z, millennials, et cetera, like my kids, right? They're all getting married now and having kids. So, are they going to be able to afford a house? I'm not sure. So we have two other
quick, before we move on, a power tip to any realtors that are out there. There's a great episode from Christopher Lockhead's podcast years ago. Thanks to ChatGPT, I found it. Episode 681, he talks to Tim Rode, who's a realtor in Lake Tahoe, talking about category design and real estate. So just power tip for you.
Episode 681?
Yeah, I think that's what they told me, yeah.
All
Tim
right.
Rode, R-H-O-D-E.
All right. So there's 2 other questions. I don't think we're really going to have time to answer those because we have 7 minutes. Abel Osorio and Amber Grainer. I would say Abel and Amber, if you can come to the next panel, which is another category design panel, but it's a fireside chat with Damp and with Kevin Maney. They're going to talk about the new trends in that area. And I think it's Tim Rode, Gustavo, R-H-O-D-E, right?
Yep.
Yeah, R-H-O-D-E. But Abel says, what's the sweet spot between category design and personal branding? He says he's curious about the moment when shaping a category stops just being a market narrative and starts relying on the founder's own identity, story, and credibility to make the category feel real. And then Amber says, as we see more AI and infrastructure companies attempt to name their wave, community seems to be the difference between a category that sticks and one that fizzles. How do you advise companies to operationalize community as part of a category, as part of category stewardship? So
Amber, community and category design is my intersection. So like, if you want to come to my session tomorrow, I'll definitely be talking about that.
Yeah, your session tomorrow is going to be at 12 Central, 1 Eastern. So yeah, and Pablo's great. All right, and then let me see. Opposite. Okay, so and then the balance between personal branding, etc. Maybe we could, Abel, if you could stay, if you can go to the next category, the next session, with Kevin Maney and Mike Damphousse, that would be great. Any closing words from you guys?
Oh man, yes, I'll start, and I want to just say this based on like I feel like I'm friends with everybody on this panel uniquely, and I think category design is not it's a craft, right? Like it's something that you will forever, like if it bites you like it bit me when I first read Play Bigger. I first read Play Bigger at the beginning of 2019, and like there wasn't a lot of other people talking about it outside of that book. And what's worked for me has been to find, like at first I was just like mailing them Play Bigger and be like, read this and let's talk about it. But now I just think there's way more folks out there, right? Like I think what Kevin and Damp are doing, what Chris is doing, what Fernando's doing, the category pirates, there's become a whole bunch of different watering holes now around category design. And the thing that's worked for me the best has been to like buddy up next to the folks that are doing the stuff that you've wanted to be doing, and like add value to their life in some way, and figure out how to spend time with them, and like read everything that they write and like practice it on their own and evangelize the thing that they're saying and promote it to other people. Like for me, nothing has been more effective for me in like figuring out how to actually do this for myself than to like proximity to Damp and Kevin.
Yeah.
Like and the time I spent with them, like it's
and I've done the same thing with Chris Stanley. Chris and I, we pick up the phone, text each other all the time. We're iron sharpens iron, right? We've been talking about category design for the last few months.
Not the same level as hanging out with Kevin, though. I think Pablo's got an unfair advantage to you there, Fernando. Not the same level of hangout.
The reality, guys, is the category design community is so approachable.
Yeah.
Whether it's Kevin and I or Lockhead, whoever, further up in the chat, I put a link to our office hours. Anybody can book time to talk with us, and we don't care if you don't even have a company yet. You just got a brilliant idea, come chat. And we're all about, Kevin and I want to leave a legacy on this earth of tens of thousands of category designers. And that's our goal. We don't care. I mean, it's nice to do business. We don't care about the big projects as much as we care about everybody out there thinking they're category designers. And I mean, it's incredible. The movement is so powerful.
Well, that's what, and if you stick around for the next session, I mean, that as we talked about when we wrote the book, The Category Creation Formula, we're basically just giving away all our secrets, because that's what we believe in. It's just like, if we do something for everybody, then it'll come back to us.
All right, everybody, the next session, you can go to it there. You can also go to it if you just go to the schedule on the summit.strikemarketingsummit.com site. You'll go to schedule and go to the talk called The Category Creation Formula, Discover, Design, and Win New Market Categories with Kevin Maney and Mike Damphousse. Damp and Kevin, if you could stay here, I'm going to momentarily put a little placeholder with music over here. And we'll be back very soon. See everybody in the category creation formula talk, which is also the name of their